Alright, hello everybody. If you've never been here before, welcome to Sector67. We do these monthly meetings. It's essentially like a 7-minute show and tell. People talk about projects they're working on, things they're doing. After the meeting, we can go around and we can say who you are or what you're interested in, what you do. And then if you'd like, you can go on a quick show around to what's here and you can see what's going on. Without further ado, Ramesh just got the first presentation and then we'll just kind of go down the line.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks for allowing me to run this workshop here. I think it was the first time there was some bacteria and some coding going on hand in hand, all done at the workstation behind there with the desktops. My name is Ramesh. I'm a biochemist by training, a self-taught computer programmer. And so I try to bring these two fusion, the concepts that border on the biochemical genetics, where programming can be used to visualize actually what's happening in the cell. And so this workshop was on 15th and 18th of July, just a few weeks ago. Had 8 participants, 4 students, and then 4 the parents of those students who participated, school students. There were 3 high school students and 1 elementary student. So I'll briefly go over, basically summarize what happened in the workshop, and then open up for some questions. So this workshop was all about genome editing. And so we took some bacterial cells that will not grow in presence of a drug, and so edited the genome of the cell using what is currently, you might have heard about it, CRISPR-Cas system, things that are used to edit all kinds of systems. In this case, we used a non-pathogenic bacteria, and we edited the genome so that it would grow in presence of a drug. So that was the biology experiment. So the students in this course who registered for this course learned how to dispense small volumes using pipettemen, how to prepare Petri plates for growing these bacterial cells. And so they prepared their own Petri plates using the drug that the bacteria is sensitive to normally, and then if the editing happens, it will grow in those plates. And then I had all the reagents, the students actually use those reagents to incubate the bacterial cells so that the genome gets edited. And then on the workstations in the desktop, what I did was to kind of visualize this. So what's really going on is that the CRISPR-Cas system is like a scanning mechanism. It scans the bacterial genome for certain patterns. And so once it recognizes a pattern, it cuts that. And then once it is cut, it inserts the marker that will allow the cells to grow in presence of the drug. And so that's basically the biology. So the coding part, I mocked up the situation. For example, if you have a book that has thousands of words and there's a sentence that says this is a good thing, and so you have to scan the book letter by letter to find out where that sentence is, this is a good thing. And then once you find it, you cut it and make the insertion so that the new sentence will be this is not a good thing. Right? And so I try to visualize this in terms of how do you code. So you just have a string, which is a genome, and then you recognize a pattern, and then CRISPR-Cas will cut it in that. So I try to bring the concept up. So we had plenty of, so the whole thing was to give how biological information generally gets happens in the information gets inside a living cell and how it manifests itself. So first is the organization of the biological information, and that we all know the genetic material is DNA. You all might have heard about it. And so we have computer codes and binaries. In this case, the DNA is a chemical code containing 4 alphabets. So we learned about this, and we understood, trying to get some visuals with a lot of images and videos that are openly available. To get a feel for how DNA is and how this information gets organized in DNA. And then what we really see in living cells is that not so much the DNA just as a powerhouse. It expresses and manifests in terms of the functional components, which are usually proteins, and there are different types. And so how does this information flow from DNA to express itself in terms of functional proteins? And so the idea is that if you want to create some kind of a change, you got to change you can't really change the proteins in any way, because you have to, that will not pass on from generation to generation, that just die off. So once you make the edits in the genome, the master switch, then that will be propagated from generation to generation, and therefore you will start expressing whatever you have edited from the genome, and that will continue. And so in order to bring those concepts, I brought those two. And so some of the visuals, what is DNA, is double-stranded, and those coding rules is what I was insisting. There are some specific chemical coding rules that will allow these strands to come together. A will pair with T, C will pair with G, and so that is how the information is also contained when the cell divides. The same pairing rules allow the newest strand so that it replicates, and that's how the information gets decoded into proteins too. And so there were a number of visuals, and I will try to start this visual, and it will take a while to load, and if it does load, then yeah. While it is loading, we'll go back. Oh, it didn't go quite fast. All right, so that's one kind of a visual where you can see DNA in a double helical twist manner, each of these base pairs. And so what we're trying to do is to recognize a small pattern of base pairs in this, and then the CRISPR-Cas will cut it at that point and edit and insert and bring in the new thing that will allow the cells to grow in presence of the drug. And so this was a string of sequence that one can imagine, and how those patterns are recognized and what kind of code you write to visualize this whole thing. All right, so that's so. And then there's, if anyone wants this information, please let me know. Get in touch with Chris or directly contact me. These are all open source information. Plenty of things that you can do to visualize how the coding happens. A pairs with T and C pairs with G. All the students were able to spend some time actually looking at understanding how the base pairing rules happen, so that when they start coding, it became easier for them to understand how this process works. So that's all. The whole thing in that part was to understand this concept that there are simple coding rules. And so if I give you the sequence of one strand, one should be able to, given this information, get the sequence of the other strand. All right. And then once you get the concept of DNA as a double-stranded and how that information flow from DNA to get it into proteins. And so the idea was to that if you need in order to make any meaningful edits so that the cell expresses and it functionally shows up, you need to make those edits at the DNA level. All right, so the experiment that was done was to take non-pathogenic bacterial cells. These are laboratory-grown cells, E. coli cells, Escherichia coli cells. And so to make them competent, and so that just treat them with some very simple chemicals like calcium chloride that will allow the cells to take up the CRISPR-Cas things that will go and edit the cells. And then the resulting cells are incubated in a certain growth media, and then they are plated in conditions where the unedited cells will not grow, and if the editing process is successful, then the bacteria will grow in presence of the drug. And so some pictures from the workshop. All of this happened right behind where the desktops are. Corey learning to do some pipetting for the first time, people pouring the Petri plates, then learn to how to grow bacterial cells on those Petri plates, and this is from the workshop to visualize those colonies. And in the end, some of the students were high school or elementary school students showing off their plates where after editing. And so that's how it worked. So the control cells, without editing, are unable to grow. And in what you see are those dots, are those cells where the editing process has happened, and now the cells are able to grow. So pretty much all 8 students had a successful result, and so they could visualize, they did the experiment, understood what's really happening in the CRISPR-Cas system in the cell, and were able to see the results. And so in the coding part, what am I coding here? So it's basically imagining the case of this is the genome, this is a book that has lots of words and sentences, and you're scanning for this pattern. And once you scan and find the pattern, the code was to locate where in the genome the patterns are, and to just print out the output. Okay, it's in index position 0, 9, and 18. So that is the extent, and then the machinery will go and cut it in that and make the edits. And so this was a very simple process, and I guess this can be done in many ways. And so what I thought was to just, instead of not taking the traditional mathematical route of doing programming, it was all taught with strings, because DNA is just a bunch of alphabets like thing, and so proteins are also alphabets, polypeptides. Any polymer can be considered as a string, and what kind of string manipulations that one normally does at the beginning stages of for coding. And so finally, that was the code that they ended up writing. So string manipulations, calculating the length of the genome, length of the target, some basic mechanisms where you look at range functions. Within a range, you scan for this, go for this part from the beginning till the end, and then you look at whether that particular pattern is present, and then that is present, you count that and keep going. So basically sequentially going step by step from, and if you find a matching pattern, you count. So that was the gist of the workshop. And so given that, I think the plan is to slightly go to the next level concept, integrate some concepts with using what we call a synthetic biology, genetic design, and I'm trying to bring that into Python code. And so the next workshop I'm planning is to take yeast cells. So I just went to Woodman's and got some Fleischmann's yeast. And so the idea is to, yeast do not have any fluorescence normally, and so there is this jellyfish, protein from a jellyfish that we can use to get it into those yeast cells. And now, if that successfully happens, then the yeast cells will be fluorescent, so green fluorescent protein. And so the experiment, not done yet, will look like this. So the yeast will have the, if you flash blue light, you'll have the fluorescence. And so the idea there is to bring up this concept: how is the DNA sequence manifests itself in terms of a protein? It's called as transcription and translation in biological terms. And so what kind of coding that one can do to visualize what is going on. And so the code I've written that works. And so that's a work in process. This part is relatively easy for me to do, but to translate that and bring that in terms of coding so that people can understand what is going on is going to be the next step. And so the reason why I'm trying to do is to kind of integrate these concepts that are typically taught in high school level biology, but without the coding components. So I'm trying to form a small company here, and so most of the things that I'm planning to do, hopefully at Sector67 workshops like this, that will bring about these concepts. Because biology pretty much is going digital. We know what happens when music went digital. And so pretty much all of our health information in a few years is going to be, we'll all be walking around with a flash drive containing our genome. And so these kind of experiments and understanding these concepts, I'm sure, will help us assimilate how this information gets propagated, who's going to use the information, how this information, what we should be able to understand what is going on here. There's plenty of information available, publicly available resources. NIH has an All of Us research program, which you might have heard about. So all these things I'm trying to put together. And there's simply a lot of things happening in this space here. New careers are happening in terms of genetic counseling, gene curation, all kinds of things. And I think if students get involved at this high school level, this will be a really good thing. So basically the biology contents are here. We can easily translate that in terms of coding contents and get a feel for how these things eventually work. And if those things do not work, if any of these things have a problem, and the consequence is that it results in a disease, for example, sickle cell anemia, where a single nucleotide change or single base change results in a defective protein. So these things can be easily done to visualize how these things are happening. So that's the goal here. And so for that, the first part was to get some kind of a community workshop going here. And thanks to Chris, we were able to do it here just to get a feel for, does it work in a forum, in an environment where things are not fully sterile. You don't need ideally these are done in a big lab under sterile facilities, but we were able to do it successfully in an open environment using reagents that are sourced easily available. So if you have any questions on this, please get in touch with me. I'm in the Sector67 user group, or call me. My information is available with Chris. So any questions I can take now, otherwise we can discuss later.
Any questions? No?
So you were describing how when CRISPR cuts into, finds that pattern in the DNA, cuts into it, that allowed it to react, because a lot of bacteria grow in lesions, but
Right. So
we didn't understand what was preventing bacteria growing.
So right. So after it cuts, we are going to edit. So we are going to add. So for example, this is a good thing. So we are changing this to this is a not. This is not a good thing. So we are adding the not component. And so the not component is the one that makes the bacteria now resistant to the drug. Without that, the bacteria cannot grow.
So the first species just had the drug.
That's right.
Well, they both had the drug.
They both had the drug.
But it made it.
Yeah. The first period contained cells that were not edited. Right? And so the components in CRISPR-Cas there are three components. One is the CRISPR enzyme itself, that's a protein. Then is the place where it goes and scans the component that base pairs. And the third component is the one, the not component, where you have to make the insertion at the location where it cuts.
I got an important question for you. Is the bread going to glow if you use the yeast?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I'm actually growing some of those things. I haven't done that yet. So I'm having a hard time sourcing the green fluorescent protein constructs and all. It's getting to be a little bit beyond my ability to get that. But I'm working on some of those things. But sure, once it is.
Any other questions?
Yeah, is your delivery method a virus of some kind?
No, this was bacteria, so these are treating them with polyethylene glycol, something we use as an antifreeze in our vehicles.
You mentioned that.
And calcium chloride. It's a combination of those two in very dilute conditions.
And that breaks down the cell walls that the CRISPR-Cas can
Would
get
be.
in to edit the DNA before the next generation.
Right. There are very different, so the way you deliver things into bacteria, in bacteria it's easier, but other organisms, there are complex ways of pre-treating those to make them take material. Normally they won't take it, but these are easier.
Yeah, good. How do you go from the code and the computer into chemistry or biology? Like how do you print?
You can't yet, unless you have a lot of money.
Okay, I missed that.
Maybe the next class, another year. We gotta build a machine first. Any other questions? I think Ramesh will be around for a while too, so if anybody's got questions, you can put them. So he's gonna be doing another class, and if anyone's interested in either helping with the class, I'm sure you can therefore take the class and absorb all the knowledge, or if you're interested in signing up for a particular thing, or if you have your own biochemistry interests, you can certainly talk to him and see if maybe that lines up with something you could do. Cool. All right.
Thank you.
Computer.
Just HDMI, it's all out of that laptop. Usually it's like, this is the laptop stand.
Okay, the presentation part of this is going to be short. Okay, I've presented here a couple of times with my, oh, that's, is this gonna, here, should have, okay. Presented here a couple of times with this transmission. 9 weeks ago, I enrolled in the MadWorks Business Accelerator on the recommendation of Marcus Schumann to present his project from the FreeDisc cohort. And next week, I give my final presentation. And so the first part of this is going to be a practice of that. I'm just going to go through the first 5 slides that I've already done for Monday's presentation. And then I'll answer questions and my test runs. Great.
Likes the,
Where's your mesh? I found your fluorescent green.
Oh, yeah.
All right, my name's Nick Hine. Thanks for coming tonight. I'm founder of Pebble Motive, and our product is Speedcase, a transmission to allow bicycles to shift like new at any age, in any weather, under any conditions. This is our team. I'm the founder, inventor of the Speedcase transmission. It's been a long path. I started this in about 1989. Things have advanced a lot. Other people have come up with similar designs, but none of them are producing it now. And we have some new innovations that have made this a good time to bring to market. Jim Rasmussen has been the fabricator. We have advisors, Tim Stanton and Jim Burnick, both experienced in the bike industry and in bike shops. They know what customers want. They know what producers can build. Here's the problem. For any vehicle that's going to operate in wet, snowy, dirty conditions, you want to be able to get power from the motor to the wheels reliably. For about 100 years, motor vehicles have done that by putting the transmission inside a case to keep it clean. Bicycles, not so much. And it's been like this for 100 years. It's time to do better. The solution is an enclosed transmission for bikes, but not just a car transmission on a bike. The process for inventing this came about by moving the front and rear gear clusters together, making them identical, shifting the chain in parallel lines between the pairs of gears so the chain length stays the same, combining the now that the two sets of gears are close enough together, you can combine the front and rear shifters and derailleurs in one mechanism that goes between the two, and enclose it to protect it from the weather and mount it to the bike frame instead of the wheel, so it's simpler to take on and off, and provide for optional motor assist. This is what it will look like on a bike when we're in production. It'll be completely enclosed, weatherproof, maintenance-free, shifted with a single lever that doesn't have a return spring. It has a cable loop, so you can pull it from either side. There's no more sticking where you shift a couple of gears before anything moves. It shifts every time you move it to a new detent, shifts back, and you can adjust a little bit at each day time. Modular, so it can be adapted to many bike types, weighs and costs less than what it replaces, and provides for optional motor assist on the case. Here's how it compares to other people. Like I said, have tried to solve this problem. Mostly, and their solutions are heavy, complex, not versatile. They only work with the bike frame that they've been built for. Conventional derailleurs are affordable and lightweight and wide range, but they take two controls, which are complicated. It's difficult to remove the wheel. They're not reliable once they've been out in the weather. There are hub gears at the low price end, the high price end. In both cases, they address the ease of shifting issue. They address the reliability issue, but taking a wheel off to change a tire to fix a flat is difficult. There is a new system called the pinion gearbox, which gives you 18 speeds inside this case that's mounted on the where the bottom bracket would be. It solves a single control. It's got a wide gear range. It's reliable. It costs a fortune and it weighs a ton. Speedcase addresses all of the shortcomings of those other systems. Status right now, we have the prototype that you see in front of me working for test and customer demos. Prototype 2 is in development. We have it, it's made primarily with 3D printed parts right now. We are in the process of replacing those with metal parts so that it will actually work, but this, except for the flexing of the plastic, would work. And we've identified a potential development partner to take this to market, and we're doing further identification of what customers want this first. We'll pay the price for the early, to be an early adopter. Currently, we're looking at the commuting and touring market, the recreational market, the higher end, where people will pay for a good value. And recumbent trikes are a particularly good market for this because they typically have the crank mounted on a boom that's removable. We can build this transmission into that boom and just switch it into the bike with one tool. What we're asking for, if you see yourself as a partner in this venture, if you have connections in the bicycle industry with drivetrain or frame builders, we'd like to get with you and talk about the possibilities. If you're an investor, we're seeking funding to continue and complete product development. So that, and if you're a customer, if you see this as something that you could use, if you want to have a bike transmission that shifts sharp under any conditions, at any age, and stays that way with a lot of fiddling, come see us. We'll talk to you about building a custom. Questions, and then we'll have a demonstration right there.
Does this eliminate the rear derailleur then too?
It eliminates the, it puts the front, the rear derailleur right here.
And how many speeds is that?
The one on this bike is a 9-speed. The one on here is a 7-speed. We've taken a different approach on this one. In both cases, we're using a 9-speed cassette, but in this case, we've put it on a shaft that brings the input and the output cogs to the outside of the case. And on the other one, we're using all 9 of the cogs on the inside, so it's much simpler to build. We didn't have to have these extra parts out here, but that we lose 2 cogs. So this is only 7 speeds, even though it's got 9 cogs on the set. Good question. Others? We can put more in here. We're using off-the-shelf components for everything. Every free hub body that will take 8 speeds will take up to 10 speeds. So we could get a 10-speed cassette with a thinner chain and thinner cogs and have 8 usable speeds in here instead of 7.
How much does it weigh?
This, you can pick it up yourself. We figured the weight's about, I weighed this one is about 4 pounds. And so that eliminates your, you're down to 1 shifter, it eliminates your derailleur in the back and all the gears in the back, it eliminates all the extra chain rings in the front derailleur. So I've compared, yeah, go ahead and pass it around. I've compared the weight of this to the drivetrain weight of other bikes, and it is at or below the weight of conventional derailleur systems. It's for the particular model I looked at, even though the rage now in bicycling is 1x system, 1x10s, 11s, and 12s, so that you get rid of the front derailleur, but then you end up with this pizza-sized set of gears on the back wheel, which adds weight. Those are heavier than a 3x9 system, like what was originally on this. And so we expect this to be as light or lighter, as cheap or cheaper than what we're replacing. Yeah.
But so you're going to add weight, you got this waterproof housing, right? I mean,
the housing will just be, it's not structural, it'll just be lightweight plastic to keep the weather out.
But you still have the chain is still exposed in the back, or will it be prohibited?
It can be, but since it's a single speed chain, it's easy to put a cover over that as well.
So you anticipate the cover basically will go all the way to the
Yeah. Any other questions? Anybody want to buy one now?
Who here bikes more than, let's say, 3 miles a day?
And more than,
There's the people you want to talk to.
All right. Anybody
Maybe
bike more than 6 months a year?
Yeah, see, the same psychos.
My people.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Was there another question?
No, I was, you're good. Come on up.
Okay, ready?
Yep. Let's do the next person.
I'm ready to take pictures. Everybody pose well. I'm going to take my picture.
Oh, and there'll be test drives afterwards, after all the presentations are done.
And if you just ride away on the test drive, you get yourself a new bike.
And 2 lodgings for
guy in jail.
Okay.
Ready?
Wait.
It wasn't like the max today, was it? Let's try, supposed to bring all your advice up there so you pass it on.
Oh, yeah. Wait, do you need keys?
There you go.
Okay. So I'm new to Sector 67. So thank you, Chris, for having us here. My name's Ida, and I am currently the manager at Troy Kids Garden. It's an environmental learning center on the north side. If you've heard of Troy Gardens, we're the kids garden, the children's garden in the center of it. There's 300 community gardens there, a CSA farm. So I'm in charge of the children's programming there. And a lot of the kids that we serve over 1,000 kids every summer. They're coming from really urban environments. And plastic is a huge issue that all of us encounter every day. And so I was kind of wondering, after having kind of a conversation with a kid last year, why are we not addressing plastic in our environmental education that we provide there? A lot of it is garden-based, which is amazing. But in today's world, I think the statistic I heard was by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean by weight. And there's a whole bunch of scary stats like that that are real. And so to kind of tackle that global problem in the small area that I have influence in, this was our idea. So this is what's happening. We're bringing precious plastic machines to Troy Kids Garden. And thanks to Sector 67, they have built the machines and made the molds and just have provided a really awesome, welcoming workspace. And we've also found Adrian in the back there in the blue, who's a designer, amazing designer, and we've kind of collected, and Brian, he's way back there too, working on this stuff. We've collected a small group of people to pull this together. So it is, I'm like the face that has been doing the presentations. I was on the radio this morning, if you were listening to Ward. But Chris and Adrian and Brian and Matthias, my husband here, they are really the grunt of the work. With the machines and all that stuff. So that's what this project is, and I have so many slides and things, but I have a really cute video. This is just kind of the program of what we do at the Kids Garden, and then I'll kind of talk about a little bit how it fits into the program as well. And then what you're probably interested in is like how the machines work and things like that. So we'll do that too. Yeah, the machines work a whole lot like actually making apple cider, where you have to break down plastic. So kids right now are bringing in, they brought a whole ton of milk jugs today, and they were building a bicycle shredder that's actually behind the presentation screen. The parts are coming in, but it's being built here. And it's going to be functioning like our bicycle blender, and also the apple cider, but together for plastic. So I made this presentation for another thing, and so it's really long. But this is how the machines work. Right now, this is like the beta version. We just have an injection machine that's made out of an upcycled drill press. It's actually out front, and so if you would like to try it after today, it's going to be open so you can try it. But this is I'm going to speed through it, but this is the 4 machines and kind of how they work. Do you want to talk about machines?
Sure. No, basically the idea came from this guy. He's based in the Netherlands, and he actually tried to make 4 machines work together as a set to build different stuff. He tried to standardize these machines, getting these parts from anywhere. So it's basically very easy in some way. If you find a person with the skills, of course, by yourself, to build these machines. We are actually getting a portion of money to build probably 2 machines. Right now we have a crazy idea, but we are also yeah, Brian will be included too. So yeah, well, we are applying for another plan and get more money to build these 4 machines and try to build this program as soon as possible.
Yeah. So these are all machines. These are just like other things that we do with it. So, oopsies. Yeah, so the process is just like that. You take your plastic waste, shred it down into bits, and then heat it back up and mold it or extrude it into a different form. And so right now, so this is like all 4 of them together. There's lots of other ways that you can create forms of plastic, but these are the forms that are blueprints are free on the internet. And right now we're starting with this guy at the garden, except it doesn't look like that. But the concept is the same. These are some examples of products that people have been making. Precious Plastic, again, is like a kind of global organization started in the Netherlands, and so folks all around the world have been making this stuff and have been posting it to Instagram, so that's where these photos are from. And so we're starting a Madison branch. And the Madison branch has the extra component where these folks are making products to sell, but we are kind of, we're providing education and the experience for kids and now the public to experience hands-on recycling from the beginning with your old shampoo bottle to the end with something that you made. It fits into the garden really well because the kids garden where I work, our education model is really student-centered, so that we offer a bunch of different stations where kids can be in the kitchen harvesting from the garden and cooking a recipe. This week we're making pickles. They can be making nature-based art. There's clay, lots of things to do in the garden, prairie explorations. We have a chicken coop. And so now there will be a recycling center. And so kids can choose whatever they're interested in and then float, we like to say, to whatever they're interested in. So if they want to be recycling all hour while they're there, they can do that. If they want to dabble in every activity, they can also do that. So this is our machine building in progress. This is a photo of exactly behind us.
And Brian is there.
Yeah, there's Brian. There's Matthias. I think that's Chris. So this is the shredder, and then
We are waiting for the rest of the parts.
yeah, we're waiting for the rest of the parts. It's not complete yet, but it should be soon. And then there will be events every Thursday, or select Thursdays when I can go, where you'll be able to come and recycle by bike. So these are some prototype designs. So Adrian was really awesome, and he interviewed Troy Farm, which is another program on our land that it has a lot of plastic waste for seed flats, and we do too. These are, what's the way that these are called? They like suction it? Vacuum formed. So they break super easily, and this happens all the time for gardeners. And so an idea to kind of close that circle of plastic within our community is to take these, wash them, and create a more durable form of them. And Adrian was awesome in thinking two things that are different about the new designs. Well, three. One is that it is sturdy enough that you can put it in a rack. And Trey Farms grows sprouts for the Madison community. You'll see us selling them in Metcalf's and Woodman's and Willie Street. And having them in racks with the lights will make that process a lot easier for them. They can't do that with this flimsy model. Another plus is that with the 9-seeder, like seed starter, those fit exactly into the seed flat there. That's also really nice because oftentimes these are really awkward fitting. And then the third one is that it says Troy Gardens in the bottom. And that's awesome because we can design it and it's ours. So these are some other designs that Adrian has made. So this Troy chicken is right here. This is the one that we've done for our beta mold. And so Matthias is passing around 2 of the molds. And there's the keychain that you can take a look at, and the others are our ideas for later when we have more machines built, if we get the funding for that. Cross your fingers for us. And then these are just photos of this machine and what we're doing in the garden right now. So currently kids are cutting the plastic by hand and then sorting it by color into little yogurt cups. And they can choose to make, where did those piece? They can choose to make it into a magnet, a necklace, a pin, or a keychain. And so these are like little how-to things that'll be at the station. You can pass these around too. For like an adult or a kid that can read really well. It's very image heavy, so like anyone, it's designed actually after, I'm an art teacher during the school year, and so it's designed after an art teaching pedagogy method where a kid can come up to a station and just help themselves and become independent. So that's kind of pulling from there. So these are just more photos of what's been going on and what we're making. So far it's just chickens. But we have figured out 5 different ways you can make the chicken. The 4 that I said, and then also today, I don't think I have a photograph, but we found out how to make the chicken stand up so it can be roosting. And that's been really exciting. So you can also have a chicken stand up if you don't want a keychain. And that's it. This Thursday, we are opening it for the public. You are right now are going to be the first group that's not children that will be able to test it out. And it's going to be open for the public this Thursday from 4 to 6 at Troy Garden. So the address is right there. Right there. And another reminder that the machine is out front if you want to try it at the end. And that is all we have for you.
Question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you tell me briefly about the melting process once you shred it, and then what do you do to melt it, and what temperatures does it go
You
to?
can experience it firsthand, right?
Yeah, you can experience it firsthand.
Yeah. Okay, I'll get to the end. The thing is that typically in some kind of things where biological experiments are done, they need to be reasonably clean and reasonably sterile. But you probably have some kind of a temperature building. We raise it up to a certain temperature that probably achieves sterility right there. So I would just.
It's 220 C.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So also we pick HDPE, that is the plastic that is used for food and hygienic products. It's a very clean plastic.
Great.
And at the melting point is not toxic for the kids to work, you know. So we also try to reach the melting point because in other plastics, when you pass the melting point, the fumes are toxic. So right now, for the safety of the kids and because it's a very easy type of plastic to work, we choose HDPE.
Okay.
Any other questions?
What if you use like a chemical solvent and then like reconstituted it somewhere else, like outside? You know, instead of heating and grinding, could you do that?
Melt it besides heat. I'm not sure that you can. I
Yeah,
think
you
it
can't
can
like
be
dissolve it
super-
and then like.
No, I think it's super
Yeah,
not
no?
dissolvable.
Okay.
It's the same thing cutting boards are made out of. It's like
Yeah.
nothing
Okay.
does
Yeah,
anything
it's
to it.
a plastic, right? Okay.
When did you make the fried chicken?
We've made chickens.
But yeah, sorry, but
We're in
no,
the beta
yeah,
version.
we are working with the help of Adrian. We are working in coasters too, and we are trying to do small things first with these machines that need, like requires a small amount of plastic because we are working with the kids so they could bring their plastic from their homes and we could use that. So it's a small amount. So when we start start talking with other persons that want to join to this project to provide more plastic, and with the help of these 4 machines, we will be able to do bigger things and more things. So yeah, that's part of the goal, Yeah, I don't know if you saw in the pictures, but one of the things that it's very ambitious for us is these plastic corners that Adrian designed. Is for growing raised
beds.
Raised beds.
Mhm.
So you could also dock it, And the big
Customize
problem with
them.
these ones is like the corners get rot, and they fall apart. So this solution is going to be very amazing for the garden. But there is another appliance too that we are very happy to explore.
Can you put the chickens together like that?
Yeah, I was just
yeah.
gonna say, Adrian is so
Together.
smart. He has, just his designs are awesome. So the chicken is multifunctional. It could be that little, any little trinket that you want it to be, or you can fit them all together and make a mural. So it's also kind of like a multifunctional chicken mosaic. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 questions. Volume-wise, the amount of plastic we generate is way overwhelm any kind of products, lasting products you can make, and then they're always going to be producing more throwaway plastic. I don't know if that's a question, or if there's a solution.
No, yeah, it's. I think the plastic, if it's clean, we could work with that. There is some people that is building furniture with this, so we depend where we are going to get our plastic. Is it's clean, it's very helpful for us.
We're always going to have a good supply.
Yeah. So one of
Precious plastic, right?
the alternatives that we have, we were exchanging some emails with the recycling center, and they could probably provide us HDB plastic or a portion of plastic that we could work and have like a stock, so we could make more stuff.
Yeah, but the other thing is even in the shed right now at the garden, there's piles and piles of plastic now, and I'm like, okay, we have to cut all these milk jugs in half because we have to stack them now, and it smells so bad. But the kind of there is going to be a whole lot of generating extra plastic, and the amount of products that we can make right now are limited. So I guess we're tackling that in 2 ways. One is that part of the education that the kids get is about refusing to use plastic, reducing the use, and reusing what they have, and the last resource to be is to recycle. And so that's part of it. I have little books and painting signs and things like that. And we'll have garden educators talk about that, but so that's one way we're addressing it. And then the other is what Matthias said, as soon as this beta version launches into a bigger project, we'll be able to produce more. And if we can get, more funding or staff or whatever to actually make it. Yeah.
Okay. And my other question, I saw somebody else doing something similar in a different context. They were melting plastic into a filament and making big tarps, like a kayak. And they had a really serious problem with uneven cooling. We set up stresses inside. Do you get away from that when you do injection molding? And are you trying to do filament molding?
So with this one we don't have to worry about uneven or even, because it's a really small piece. You worry more about evenness of drying and cooling and heat and stuff when you work with larger objects. So maybe with those beams we might have an issue because it might, it might wobble or whatever. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. But at least, I don't know, would you have a...
Should be fine.
Yeah. It's been fine for us, The only concern is that it's sometimes, if you use it really quickly, the plastic gets very, very hot. Like the more you use it, and that's like the only concern. So just give it to a kid with a rag. Tell them to wave it around in the air.
Like a cookie.
Yeah,
so
like
yeah,
a cookie.
we also try to make something small because kids are very anxious and have all of them focus on doing something and create something. They their attention is very, you need to give a fast result to them so they could, have something in their hands and they could touch and they could use and they could create and they could move. So doing something small is you have their attention because they see an immediate result. If we do something larger and takes more than 15 minutes to get cold, the kids will get bored.
They will lose interest,
Yeah. So
recycling.
we try to keep it small and see something that they could touch.
Alright, so if anybody wants to try it after the meeting, you can try making a chicken, try breaking Nick's bicycle. We're up to 2 things so far. I think we'll have a fan too. Alright, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Alright, we got Joe up next. It's a different kind of bicycle. It's closer to my heart, I gotta be honest.
We're gonna go pretty low tech here.
Okay. And maybe can we send both of the molds, the keychain, and all those papers to that back table in there?
Otherwise, no chickens for anybody if we don't.
All right. Evening, everyone. My name is Joe Walsh. I've been a member of Sector 67 for about 4 years, and I'd like to introduce you to my motorized bicycle that I built about 4 years ago. Somewhere along the line, I decided to name it Hardly. And so the impetus behind this was I got to be too lazy to ride my bike to my 3.5 mile commute to work, so I decided I was going to get a motorcycle. So I had a motorcycle, decided I was going to get a motorcycle. Ran into a problem. Here's my problem statement. The problem would be my daughter, teenage daughter. Why should that be a problem? Well, some of you may have made this agreement I made with my wife that I won't do something dangerous like ride a motorcycle while the kids are young. I didn't think she was young anymore. My wife disagreed. We had butting heads over this a little bit, so I'm trying to find a way up, saving face, to solve my commute. And University Avenue one day, I hear this buzzing bicycle go flying by me, and I see a motor on a bicycle. Never knew there was such a thing. Jump on the web and find out there's this whole world out there of people doing this. So I thought, okay, maybe that's my loophole, how I get around this whole motorcycle thing for a little while. And so that was a solution to doing a motor bicycle. First thing I was wondering, is it even legal to do this? So before I went and did that, I checked into some of the rules. Sure enough, there is within Wisconsin statutes such a thing defined as a motor bicycle, bicycle powered unit with a motor added to it. And the key that keeps it in a motor bicycle rather than motorcycle is that it doesn't go over 30 miles per hour. I think a lot of other states, they do a 49cc limitation, but the way it's written in Wisconsin is 30 miles an hour. So as long as you don't go over 30 miles an hour, you can be considered a motor bicycle. And the other thing I found is you really need a valid license to be able to ride it legally. But other than that, it's okay to do. You can't use the motor on a bike path that's not agreedly allowed for motors. But I got comfortable with the idea of, okay, I can do this. There is such a legal thing out there. You don't have to register it. You register your bicycle with the city just like your bike license with the city. It doesn't get registered with the state, anything like that. So then I was ready to move on to the next thing. Oh, and then there's DOT is kind of check the guidelines here, just to make sure this thing works. And then you go out on the internet, and there's like this whole subculture out there of people doing this stuff and creating these like tribute bikes and bikes that look like old board track racers and and all that stuff going on. There's like a whole subculture out there that I found. Well, that's kind of interesting, but that's not really what I was looking to do. Just trying to solve no problem. And even Jay Leno kind of got into it. Did a little episode on Jay Leno's garage on one of these things. Phantom bikes, kind of building these things you could buy for like $2,500 or so. And again, I did most of this work like 2, 3, 4 years ago, and I guess my impetus tonight is because I'm kind of ready to move on. And Chris needed help me kind of get it ready to sell, and so I thought I'd share some of the things I learned before I kind of move on. I checked with these guys today, and it looks like these guys are only doing e-bikes today, which I think tells us a lot of what we need to know about where this whole thing's going. But then when I looked into it, the typical way you see motorized bicycles, like the one in the back there, if you looked at it, often do a 2-stroke 49cc engine. It's kind of a cheap way to do it. Take maybe a single-speed beach cruiser, got a rear coaster brake, maybe not a front brake. And basically, if you want to look at the one in the back, basically for the motor to drive it, you just sort of bolt a sprocket on the left side of the rear hub. You don't get any shifting or different gears, but you know there's a bunch of those out there you can buy for a couple $100. My commute, it was a lot of stopping, starting hills, and as I mentioned, I'm kind of lazy, so I'm thinking there's got to be a better solution out there. And so I did a few things that are not typical. The other thing when I first started at Sector was talking about this is a guy at Sector that built one of these and put it on a road bike, and from what I understand, the vibration caused the frame to crack. I didn't want that to happen. So I decided I'm going to go with a nice heavy beach cruiser, so that wouldn't be a problem. I decided if I'm going to ride this thing up to 30 miles an hour, I'd like brakes on the front and the rear. I decided to go with a 4-stroke engine, kind of no mixing gas, reliable. Don't whine quite as loud as some of the others. The downside, they're a little more expensive. The 4-stroke engines, you know, they're wider, a little heavier, so the downside there. But the bigger thing for me was, that's why I can't see that. The bigger thing for me was to get some gear shifting. And so I ended up getting a 7-speed bicycle. And there's kits out there that you can put a jack shaft, transfer the power from the left side over to the right side and put it into your pedal sprocket to use some gearing. So that's what I did. So I started with a Trek big old beach cruiser, 7-speed. You'll see brakes on the front and the rear. Then I bought these kits that are aligned with a 49cc. There's Honda makes an engine. There's sort of a Chinese, very similar engine that's a lot cheaper. So I went that route with the tank and all that stuff you see. And the other thing is there's this company out there called Sick Bike Parts that makes this jack shaft kit that kind of transfers the power from the left side over and down into your bottom bracket, so it drives off your pedals and into your rear sprocket. So I installed that as well. I won't go too much into the details unless people are interested and want to ask me about that. So there it is. I started installing it on my bike. The other thing about buying a bike, make sure you have a big enough opening to put the engine in. And so here's sort of the jack shaft you put in. You've got 2 sprockets on your bottom bracket where your pedals are. Install the engine, and you sort of transfer the power over to the right. You can take a look at it closer there. There it's all assembled, and then it ran for a while, and again, nothing, they sell it as bolt-on. Obviously, nothing's ever bolt-on. So one thing, I think one of the first things I did here when Chris showed me how to weld like a hacker is I had to rebuild the bracket because my opening was just too large. It wasn't adaptable, so I built a large bracket and put it in. And so that's what I did. It worked pretty well for me for about a 1.5 years of commuting. I put in, I think I probably got 600 miles on the thing. Got about 125 miles per gallon. I got a lot of strange looks riding around town as well. Issues is, the bottom line is you're putting a lot more power into a drivetrain that's not designed to have this much power. and we get the vibration with fenders. One thing I found is really a bad idea to try to downshift under power when you're going up a hill. You just trash a chain instantly when you do that. And it's got a few flimsy, cheap design. But for the most part, it was interesting, fascinating to do. When I look at the cost that I have into it and what you can buy a used motorcycle for at the end of the day, that's this final solution. Is your daughter gets older, graduates from high school, and then you buy a real motorcycle, and then bring this in and put it on Craigslist. So that's my motorized bicycle story. Any thoughts or questions?
Anybody want to buy a bike?
Anybody want to buy a bike?
So what do you do if you weigh more than 107 pounds in Wisconsin?
Oh,
Well-
that's the law is written. It's a check. So if you put the correct weight rider, you're not supposed to exceed a certain speed. So ironically, if you're
more than 170, you can't go fast. You can only
yeah,
go
you should go
down.
slower. And if you're 100 pounds, you actually can go faster than the legal allowed speed because you're not the
So it's a
150 pound
ratio.
target rider. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's standard. That's
Was the law 30 miles an hour for gas and 20 for electric?
Yes, that's right. You saw that.
That's the way I read it, yeah, and, when I read the law, it's, and the other thing I understand from the law, and, the way the world is going, there's more future, obviously, electric bikes than probably this. It kind of two things kind of strike me. From what I understand from the city, on a bike path, you can't use a motor.
Anyway, yeah.
So I'm curious with electric bikes, are people actually not using the motor at all on the beach side? Or are they just pedal? No. I guess my thought is we need time to lighten up on some of these laws, but that's just me.
The funny thing to me in reading the law is that we can put a 350 Chevy engine on this bike, and as long as you governor it so it won't go over 30, it's totally legal. You can accelerate as fast as you want to 30, and as long as you cap at 30, you're good. So if anybody wants to build the really wide rider, full-size car engine bike, right now it's completely legal. Ironically though, on an electric bike, you can't go over 750 watts. So it's just because they made the electric bicycle law later, and so they made it more and more restrictive. And the gas engine bicycle law was old, and nobody's been pushing the boundaries with their 350 Chevy engine bicycles, so I guess they don't need it to be any more restrictive, but it's just kind of interesting.
That would strain the bike.
Yeah, it's interesting. As long as the vehicle was intended by the manufacturer to be pedaled, and if you're the manufacturer, you can actually build a bike that's an engine, or that's a motorcycle, and it wouldn't matter as long as it has pedals. So the law is very weird in that regard.
It is a weird
specificity.
Early on when I was looking at, I was going to budget bike to buy a used bicycle to do it, and there was a guy there that said, yeah, I had one of those, and I was driving, he was probably going 35, 40, and a cop followed him home and said, no, you can't. Those things aren't legal. And that's kind of proud of me to actually dig into it if that's the case. But I thought about, should I put a governor on it to make sure I never go over 30, and it's kind of, just going to check. And it's never been a problem.
How fast does it go?
Around 35. I get it to 35 or so, and then well, here's the other thing about the whole debate. It's kind of 30 to 30. Okay, let's say I only go 30 on this in flip-flop shorts and a bike helmet. Is that really safer than wearing all the gear on a motorcycle that has real brakes and real lights and real built for it? But that was, I guess, that was a debate I had with my wife and my daughters. That problem is solved now, so I don't agree with that.
All right, thank you.
Any thoughts? All right, thank you.
Eric, do you want to talk about your van?
Sure.
Do you have your slides handy, or do I need to get them for you?
I didn't bring them.
Okay,
So-
I'll get it on. I'll grab them. Yeah. You have to entertain then while I grab them.
Okay, so, I actually used to grow up around here, actually, so first time here, but I know Nick, and Nick said, bring your van in. So I've been working on a van since October, since my wife and I, we traveled, we retired, and we went to, the impetus was we went to Ireland, and we thought we're going to bike. Well, the roads there, if anybody's been there, are really narrow. They take a one-lane road, kind of strike down the center and say it's a two-lane road. So we ended up getting a van, just renting a van that wasn't insulated at all. And the temperatures in September last year got down into the 40s, so condensation all over the inside. We ended up buying a electric blanket just to keep warm at night and plugging in the campgrounds. It was terrible. I says, I can build something better than this. Well, I come home, bought a van, started in October of last year, and I'm going to be done this week, one way or the other. We're going this week. So I started with, I used the ProMaster van, the Ram ProMaster. They're a little bit wider than, there's 3 vans to pick from. You can pick the Transit vans, the Ford, the Sprinter, which is the Mercedes, and the Ram vans, which are a little bit wider, so you can put your bed across it. But all the other ones you got to do, so it takes a little bit. Everything's on the internet. I mean, I didn't know anything about this before I started. I built a sailboat years ago, when I was in my 20s, so I kind of know what a project is. Thought I'd be done a lot sooner than this, but it's so many different systems. I've got it out here now. I've got 600 watts of solar on the roof, which I've got 200 amp hours of lithium-ion batteries inside. So the electrical thing, I think I got that figured out. Everything else was like smashing it down. It's the 136 wheelbase, a little bit smaller than Jeremiah's. So had to figure out how to fit everything in a 60 square foot. And it's all there. It's small.
For better or for worse, I think you only share the tightest line.
Oh no.
So I would say, the van's
Yeah, the van's outside, so anybody wants to take a look out. Yeah.
Yeah, is that alright?
Yeah, sure. Anybody have any questions?
You emailed it to me, you can pull it up if you want. It's in the cloud.
It's fine. It's nothing big deal.
That's fine.
I think Brian will be the last presenter, so in 7 minutes we can all just go outside. Caleb's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good.
All right.
Excellent. Good there. Brian, you wanna maybe? Maybe not? Yeah? Alright. So you can get a bike ride, a free plastic chicken that you have to make yourself, and a van tour tonight. And you might be able to buy and go home with your own illegally powered engine bicycle. Lots of options, I'm just saying. Brian, if you unplug your adapter, plug in the cable and the adapter, it'll work fine. Max don't like it if you have the adapter plugged in first and then plug in HDMI. They get angry. Perfect.
So I'm going to talk about a few things. So I've been doing some photogrammetry stuff for years now. So this is an example of something I did a while ago. So here is, and I started with 3D printing. So here's a toy truck that I made. And I took pictures of it. Was able to do a 3D print of it. And that process involved taking several pictures from several different angles and then uploading it to the cloud. It was like an Autodesk 123 Catch, I think is what it was called. That process, so it took a while. I went through it a few times. Able to then take that model, clean it up, and then run it through the 3D printer and kind of get what you see. So you can kind of get a comparison of what it does. So that was one early process. How do I switch to this thing?
That we took away when the screen was misbehaving, so.
Oh,
You can unplug it.
So,
Plug it in. Yeah, plug it back in.
what with this?
Yeah, take that off.
Alright. So, a secondary project was Old Sector was trying to capture it. How do we keep track of, how do we see? Alright, cool. So, what ended up being the process was, I was looking for a way to basically do a 3D scan of building, of Old Sector. What we ended up settling on was on your phone, there's an app called Google Street View. And what you can do is do similar thing with the fire truck and just take several pictures. So you can put yourself in a situation, take pictures, upload to the cloud. Google will stitch it together and give you a rough, I would say faux 3D view without using a 3D camera. So hopefully if this comes back up, I can show it to you. So I tried pulling it up on my laptop and I couldn't do it because the app, it's basically an Android app, an iOS app. So I was trying to pull it up on my laptop so I could show this, but I could not. So that leads me to the Phase 3 project where the place that I work for has these very fancy cameras that cost $20,000, and they're these Leica 3D scanners. So basically, you can get these devices, connect to them via Wi-Fi, and basically walk around with an iPad, put it on a tripod, and go and scan the environment. So instead of me taking pictures at certain points and uploading to the cloud, it would go through and scan them. And I had to take it back yesterday. But if you look, all right, there's some there's particular, like how does it work, right? Scans, well, right there. So as it spins, pause. So you can see there's this like little mirror thing and a mirror in there that sends out this light beam that as it spins around, it makes a point cloud. So if we get to here in the video, when they play again, you can kind of see it spinning inside of there. It's not great, but it's in there. So that's how the device works. So Saturday morning, when trying to be, the sun was up and no one was here, came here, turned on all the lights, and spent 5 hours scanning the whole building. So the process is you have the device on a tripod with an iPad, and you go around putting it, walking around a corner so it doesn't see you. It's scanned. It takes 6 to 10 minutes per item. I did like 45 points. And on the iPad, you'd see something like this. So I started here, and then I worked around, and as you could see it, or as I was doing it, it would fill out and connect everything up. So Monday, I was going to take it to the office, they uploaded it, and they did the cloud processing, and now, instead of having like a street view thing, we now have a sort of walk-through way of going through the site. So, and this is as it was Saturday morning. So this place changes all the time, but at least at one point in time, we have it sort of locked off and we know what it looks like.
So you do this every Saturday, so it's good?
So,
I was taking measurements every Saturday here.
Matthias has been working on updating our architectural model, so about a month ago, this would have been really handy, but
yes.
I don't think Brian had it a month ago, so.
Yes, yeah. This product is making a version of this that's basically a security camera that does differential LiDAR scans. So if you have it and you have the location, you can do continuous. That just came out 2 months ago or something. So anyhow, but yes, so like I said, now we kind of have a street view way of sort of walking through everything, and you can kind of see there's a circle here that sort of shows where I positioned it and set it up. So this is each position, each location of where it was. And there was, later in the day, people were starting to show up. So there was people giving me things. So if you look here, there's a little shadow of some people there that were walking through. So it does pick up things like that. And other interesting points are down here. One, there's the cat, another cat. So she posed nicely.
She must have sat still.
And then, oh, alright, I gotta go back. And then you can, down the hall, see me talking to Chris with the iPad.
Is this a 3D point cloud? Or, I mean, I know the
Yes.
rendering is a 3D point cloud, but is the 3D data accessible or not?
Oh, it is somewhere. I haven't gotten that far. So so there's, you can see the tripod with the device on it, so you can see the little reflection. So there is a point cloud somewhere. I haven't gotten to it yet. I'll ask about it. Because you know, why do we have this? We're working on scanning warehouses, so people can have a representation of what they're renting out and locations and stuff. And with our company, after you scan them, they even have an in-browser thing where you can like do measurements. So you can say, how big is that door or whatever, and you can do it through the browser. So the scanner apparently does it like half centimeter resolution is what I've been told. So assuming if I did enough of these, enough of the scans. I look at the floor plan, there's a big black box here, that's the bathrooms. I didn't think that was important for anybody. And you can also see like there's black, right, as you go scan, there's places that just can't reach because things are closed. This is a desk area, there's a desk area over here. That just, unless I put it right inside of that and scan it. So it's really, it's part of the process, right? It only sees where you put it in different points. And this is a place with lots of stuff. There's lots of doors against the wall over here, so obviously that's going to show up. Same thing in the electrical shop. This kind of got built out to cover up the three-phase electrical panel. So yeah, so I was able to do this. Works cool, looks nice. As long as you have money to spend on the thing, it's pretty easy to do. Question.
What?
Yes.
Where did this cat come from? This isn't our cat.
So, I have a couple of questions. I will try to be short. The first one, how much took you to survey the entire building?
5 hours.
5 hours.
Yep.
Second one, do you have any troubles to the windows, mirrors?
I did not. If we look at the floor plan, so you can see like over here, where I started was right in front of the front door.
Yeah.
And it went through it, and it scanned like the sidewalk and everything else. So it did go through it, but generally speaking, that was the only place where it came up. These, it didn't seem to have any problem. I do know that somehow you can take this data and just say, make me a floor plan. Right?
Yeah,
you like hit a Z level or something and say floor plan or something.
Third one,
Yeah.
you when you were scanning, you were using a tablet or something like that?
Yep.
You would visualize in real time the scan, and if you have a black hole there,
Yes.
you know that you have to scan that area?
Yeah. So it looked very much like this, and as I scanned it on the tablet, it would fill it in every time each point is done.
Okay. The other questions, can you use that file in Autodesk Recap and take some measurements from the point cloud?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And how much that device cost?
I saw on the website it was like $18,000.
When we got it a few times last year, it wasn't a big deal.
Okay, before you return and scan the upper part.
Well, I took it back.
No.
but I'll see what I can do. This upstairs is filled with more drunk than down.
Yeah, I know.
That's gonna take more points. I thought about it, but it's like.
Okay, if you appreciate his life, you will share that point out with me. Otherwise, you know, you will be missing.
Alright. I will see.
You will disappear and nobody will know.
Alright. Well, do you have like the architectural drawings? Because like I have access to these things.
Yeah, he's got plenty of
Don't get them
stuff
started.
that
They're not accurate enough. They're all wrong.
He's picky grinds. Run away screaming. He wants the community data that's even worse.
Alright.
You already think that.
Alright.
So,
Matt, you have a question?
how do you register the nodes? How does it know how far it goes?
The app knew. So if as long as I could sort of identify something, it could do it well. When I was getting into the metal shop, it did complain and said, I figured it out, but do a better job. Right? It told me like you gotta do better to like the rule of thumb was, you know, when you do it indoors, or you do it like in a doorway in between rooms, so that way it has a registration point outside and inside.
It's inferring the geometry from what it can see to what it just scanned to what it.
It's not saying go exactly 10 feet.
No, yeah.
Right,
It's,
right.
It's not actually taking a photograph, right? It's actually sensing distance.
It's using laser range and
Combination.
also
Just like
a
a
photograph.
Yeah.
So it takes a picture while it takes a distance.
And then it can, then that's how it's, because that's, in the older scanners, you would have to put dots on your, or reference points, right?
What's interesting is if you take away the pictures and look at the point cloud data, like I don't know if you guys saw when he had his truck. The truck pictures look great, but the truck 3D just by itself did not look great. Like that looks terrible, right? But as soon as if he goes up a level, you can see the truck plus the truck pictures all.
Yeah.
One of them will show, and maybe not. Usually when it stitches it together, you get a 3D rendering of what it looks like, wrapped with the color data, and it'll look awesome because it totally fools your eye. But then when you see the texture version of 3D, you realize like no, it's missing a bunch of data.
Yeah, that was the challenge when I was doing the truck, because I did this like 6 or 7 times because it looked nice, but then when I got to this point, it was like that doesn't pick up any detail. It took me a while to like get the tires, get the top half, get the windows looking right, and even that doesn't really look great. But like I said, yeah, it fools you. This looks pretty. The photo looks pretty. But like I said, when I look at the point cloud data, we'll see. Yeah,
So this is not photogrammetry, then it's scanning.
combination of both.
Okay.
Can you increase the level of points?
Can I what?
Increase the level of points? Because
Uh,
if you use Faro device or what is the other name of the other one? Trimble. So the big problem with the point clouds when you work with 3D software for architectural projects or construction is like the size of the point cloud is, if you want a better detail and if the guy that is scanning on the side is well trained, you could get a decent point cloud with a very low level of detail, 50 gigabytes. So if you have pipes or HVAC or plumbing or whatever, that doesn't work to me at all. So he has to increase the level of points with the device, but you get a point cloud of 150 gigabytes. So work with that in the 3D software is pretty challenging.
Yes.
So with that device, you can do that same.
I do know the point clouds get very large, and that in the gigabyte terabyte size.
Okay.
I don't know what, I mean, it probably goes through some sort of simplification when it cloudifies it. Like for me, someone just uploaded it and said, blur faces are not blur faces, and that was it. So I haven't gone into details of what optimizations it makes. I'm sure I can pick out very high res.
Also, that, I'm sorry.
So you can bug Brian afterwards. Sorry. Any other questions for anybody else? You can just steal Brian's laptop and you can look at all the stuff.
So I will probably send out this link as well, so people can
So with that,
walk
we can,
through it like Saturday morning.
we can wrap up so you guys can check out the stuff that's here, so we can look at it. And then, thank you, Brian.
All right.
Alright, so if you want to go around and just say who you are or what you're interested in or otherwise, and then, like, Ida is right out in front, or will be shortly, with the chicken maker. The van is on the corner, and I think Nick's up here and probably headed out that way, so we'll try some stuff out. And then, yeah, if you want to, you can probably browse on Brian's computer if you're really motivated, or you can just walk through the trail.
I'm first.
Yeah, I'm first. You can go accost him at his desk. At any rate, yeah, Caroline, you want to go first?
My name is Caroline. I'm a cartographer, so I design maps and have been around the sector for a couple of years. And you might recognize some of my map projects. A couple of years ago, I did a map of Lake Mendota that's at Memorial Union now.
My name is John. This is my first sector meeting in probably 5 years, but I'm looking at starting a small business and want to talk to you about a business incubator possibility. But my business would be designing and building adaptive and assistive technology for people with disabilities and doing so on a custom individual basis.
My name is Matt. I'm a CAD designer by trade. I've worked in a lot of different fields, mechanical, electrical. Currently I'm doing electrical, and I'm trying to phase that into solar design at some point. So I'm trying to expand my knowledge and be around people that have various interests like that. So.
You heard me, my name is Ramesh, just did the presentation. So I'm a biochemist, a genomic scientist by training. Recently branched into programming so that I can bring these two areas together. So my interests are to start something that will be a more of an educational tool for aimed towards high school students and for anybody else, hobbyists interested in understanding this area and exploring it a little bit more. So I'm planning to do more such workshops out here in the future.
My name's Kate Baldwin. I'm a scientific illustrator.
Yeah, James, own and operate a 3D printing service bureau in the basement.
Nick Hine, I'm interested in bikes and more interested in planes, but my so-called job is in solar.
Eric Tramp, the band, man. Don Post, software developer.
Joe Walsh, I teach at the U, but interested in actual water science.
I'm Carol Pope. I just came to this. Yeah.
I'm Jeremiah, and I'm also building a van about halfway done.
So I'm Mark. I'm deconstructing the trailer, so we're trying.
I'm Sarah. I'm a data scientist. I saw a fluffy white cat outside, and I thought maybe there'd be more in here, so I came in to check it out.
Territory is taken.
I'm Justin, and
He's with me.
yeah, I guess so. That's what I thought.
I'm Aaron. I'm over here in 3D printing and all kinds of stuff.
My name's Ida. I am an art teacher, grade-based educator, and now I'm learning how to do stuff in plastic and teaching other people how to do that too.
My name is Fabian, and I'm Linda, and I'm an investor in sector.
I'm Fritz Husstrider. I have been trying to get a renewable energy group going and need to come up with a topic for next Tuesday's meeting.
So next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. Your
Yep.
renewable energy meeting.
Yep.
One way or the other.
I'm Sean, I'm a remodel it. It's slowly catching up with the rest of my life. It's like sometimes the next year it's playing, starting to turn off windows. Take this place a little more finishing.
Sean's helping with getting the trim done around all the windows. So the one outside the bathroom, we've got the jam extension done. So now we're gonna put the finish and trim tomorrow. Trim around it.
Gotta yell at that pre-finisher because it's exotic.
Get it to come up. Awesome. Well, thank you guys all for coming. Like I said, if you want to take a look around here or walk around, I can give you a quick show around of what's here. Otherwise, people right out the front door is just right on the right. And the van that's been alluded to multiple times is on the corner. Jeremiah, if you want to see the one in construction, it's over this side. They're nearly identical, at least from the outside. And then, yeah, Nick's got his bicycle here. You can see if you can test it out and see what fails first. Something's bound to fail, so it'll be fun to see what breaks. All right, thank you guys all for coming.